is Youth Month in South Africa. This year, the theme is Skills for the Changing World, empowering youth for meaningful economic participation. This month is all about remembering the bravery displayed by young people on the 16th of June 1976, where almost 20,000 students marched against the Afrikaans language being used as the instructive language in schools. Every Monday in June, Business on Point is featuring a panel of young who work in or are studying economics to look at current topics. Last week, we looked at youth unemployment. This week's panel is on the budget. In May, the Minister of Finance tabled his third effort at a national budget for 2025, totaling 2.6 trillion rand. That's the largest of any country on the African continent. The budget reflects the government's priorities in addressing economic challenges, social development and infrastructure growth, while managing rising debt and fiscal constraints. This Wednesday, the National Assembly will sit to vote on the final adoption. Let's bring in our guests. We're going to welcome Jacoba Motong, Public Finance Master's student, and hopefully Fortune Mabunda, an Economics PhD student, will join us. I believe he has joined us. I've got to ask you, please, if you can just unmute your conversation there. But I'm going to start with Jacoba. This year's budget went through 3 iterations. What do you think could have been done better?
Well, Juliet, I must say it was very unprecedented for most of South Africans. However, what actually occurred, it was what I call in synopsis, epitome of democracy. This is exactly how democracy should look like. In most of South Africans, it had mix of emotions because it was unusual. One must agree, for the past 30 years, we had a one political party with outright majority that will ensure that the budget is passed simply because of arrogance of numbers. But government of national unity has taken a turn and has answered the questions we had earlier last year as to how public policy or the government of national unity will likely approach public policy. So what have occurred over these 3 phases is actually epitome of democracy, how democracy should be, that all different political parties can able to have a charge and engagement on issue of budget speech that was tabled by the minister. And we are so glad to see, as South Africans after years, to see a proper and tabling and charging of what democracy is in this country.
And you, Fortune, how do you think the budget could have been done differently this year?
Well, thank you to you and your viewers. I must indicate I do agree with Mr. Sbia that this shows that our economy, or should I say that our government, is maturing, more especially now since the GNU. It shows that as a country, we are reaching a stage where our politics are no longer going to be about who can do what or what can be done, but it's going to prioritize us as the citizens of the country, rather than just having one political party having the entire view.
Jacobo, sorry. Would you like to finish?
No, you can proceed.
Okay. Jacob, how do you think government should be engaging young people in the planning of the budget?
Juliet, the same approach that we witness now through opposition parties engaging the government relating to tabling of a budget proposal. One must understand that budget proposal is exactly a proposal, not a final decision. So government should take an approach of involving young people in an element of how they normally do with policies or piece of legislation before they can pass it. That is what we call a public participation. Actually, this is what we as young people we are calling for next year, financial year, that we must have what we call a public participation prior the government can decide to go and table what a budget proposal is. They must call for public participation so that young people can decide on their own. Because if we have listened and pay attention to the details of budget proposal by Minister Godongwane, it doesn't speak anything about unemployment, which is exactly what young people are facing. Actually, the future of young people were decided by elders in the presence of young people. So we are calling for a public participation.
Fortune, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. For sure, you have seen me nodding that Mr. Sbia is quite correct. Because if you can check, the government should be taking into consideration the fourth industrial revolution, of which most of the young people tend to be too engaged into it, and also social media. We have been speaking a lot about this issue, about VAT increase, fuel levy. That's where the government should be getting our views, or maybe perhaps the government could as well try to find an advisory team, a youth advisory team that can assist when they are planning what should be done, more especially the young people of this country with a very high unemployment rate. When we speak about the unemployment rate with the youth, it's a much more bigger number. So bringing the youth in could help.
And then lastly, Jacobo, what are your thoughts on the final budget that was tabled in May?
Look, Juliet, I must characterize it in a simple way. It was just a love letter with no any direction. I will give you the reasons why, because it's for obvious reason. Minister Godongwane spoke about 1 trillion that is going to be dedicated for infrastructure over 3 years. But that 1 trillion, he did not bring it down, or rather break it down to an understanding of how this 1 trillion in terms of infrastructure development is going to tie up to job creation as well as industrial development. So it doesn't speak to job creation of young people. What about young people who are sitting in Mthatha, in Eastern Cape? What about young people who are sitting in the eastern part of the Free State, in the old Bantu stand in Twaka? What about young people deep down in Soweto and Alexander, who are looking forward to listen to budget speech that did not speak to their continuous situation and the situation of being in dire situation in Maya, where they cannot able to think of employment at all from the government. So in essence, as I've alluded, we are fully calling for a public participation of young people in this essence, because this budget speech did not speak anyhow, even a little, to the issue of job creation within this country. As we are speaking now, we are sitting over 50% of young people without jobs.
Fortune, do you think National Assembly will give final thumbs up this Wednesday?
Well, I can say they could, because of the level of negotiations which they have taken into account this time around. However, I want to also say that the finance minister made a blunder. He had a chance of framing something that was going to benefit our country without actually increasing VAT. We have a problem in this country of youth unemployment, and that is being ignored. If you can also check, our youth are now addicts of gambling. And if the finance minister had resorted to introducing what we can then call syntax on gambling, it would have been something much better. If you can remember very well, even ENCA reported in 2023, I think somewhere around November, they reported that South Africans have spent actually 1.1 trillion, which by the end of that year could have been a bit much higher than that. But my point is, if the government can resort into introducing what I call a syntax on gambling, we can quite make enough money from what they want, or from the shortfall which it is said to be there. From a simple mathematics, 1.1 trillion rand can give them about 72 billion rand, if that is to be 6% of all winning wages, using the numbers that I have just given you.
Fortune, thank you so much for the point you make there. And to both our guests, Jacobo Motong, Public Finance Master Student, and Fortune Mabunda, Economics PhD student, chatting to us about the budget.